I am staring at a video from 2017, and I cannot stop watching it. A Republican state representative, Houston Gaines, is being asked point blank if he would vote for Donald Trump, and he is doing everything in his power to avoid answering that question. Not because he's shy, not because he is confused, but because back in 2017 saying you supported Trump in certain Georgia districts was political poison. So he dodges, he pivots, he talks about tax reform, he mentions his opponent supporting Hillary Clinton. He does everything except answer the simple question, would you vote for Trump? And you know what? Back then, I would have said that showed some backbone, some independence, some willingness to put country over party, even if he couldn't quite say it out loud. But here's what keeps me up at night. That same Houston Gaines, he joined the Trump train in July of 2025, right in the middle of the chaos. Right when masked ICE agents were grabbing 5-year-old kids, right when the Greenland debacle was unfolding, right when Trump had reportedly made $1.4 billion since taking office. That S when Houston Gaines decided it was time to go all in. And I have questions, a lot of questions, because Houston Gaines is now running for Georgia's 10th congressional district. It is an open seat because Mike Collins, one of the biggest Trump sycophants in Northeast Georgia, decided to run for Senate and give himself a pay raise. And suddenly, this guy who wouldn't have touched Trump with a 10-foot pole in 2017 is getting endorsements from Jim Jordan. He's talking about advancing the America First agenda. He has become exactly what he pretended not to be. But here's what nobody is talking about. Here is the connection that is being missed in all the noise. He's got a real opponent, a Democrat named Lexi Dhy, who is running for the second time. And if you know anything about politics, if you've worked in this world like I have, you know that second-time candidates are dangerous. They've learned from their mistakes. They know the district. They've built relationships. And they rerunning in what appears to be a blue wave year with an open seat. This is my analysis. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Let me explain why this race matters way more than you think. First, let's talk about what is actually happening in Georgia's 10th district right now. This is not some liberal enclave in Atlanta. This is Northeast Georgia. This includes Athens, with the University of Georgia. But it also includes rural communities, mountain towns, working-class families who've voted Republican for generations. And from what I can see, based on what Lexi Dhy is hearing on the ground, something is shifting. She told me something that stopped me cold. She said the people in her district, these normal working class folks, these average conservative people, are absolutely sick of what is happening in Washington. Not just frustrated, not just annoyed, sick of it. And I believe her. Because think about the timeline here. In the summer of 2025, Houston Gaines wakes up and decides that now, of all times, is the moment to embrace Trump. Not in 2017 when it might have taken courage, not in 2020 when Trump still had momentum, but in July 2025, right when everything is falling apart. That S, not conviction. That S, desperation. And you know what tells me this is a desperation move? The fact that he is running for an open seat and he still felt he needed to kiss the ring. He looked at the Republican primary landscape and calculated that he couldn't win without going full MAGA. Even though his own political instincts back in 2017 told him that Trump was toxic, what changed? Not Trump. Trump is the same guy. If anything, he is worse now. What changed is that Houston Gaines decided his political ambition mattered more than whatever principles kept him from supporting Trump before. Now let me tell you what Lexi Dhy is running on, because this is where it gets interesting. She is not running some pie-in-the-sky progressive campaign that won T-Play in Northeast Georgia. She is talking about the cost of living. She is talking about health care. She is talking about wages that haven't kept up with expenses. She's talking about small business owners who are terrified right now. And here's what is brilliant about it. She grew up in her mom's small business. She saw firsthand what happened before the Affordable Care Act when her mom had to buy her own health insurance. She saw how the ACA brought prices down for people who needed to buy their own insurance on the marketplace. So when she talks about the ACA subsidies being pulled out from under people, she's not reading talking points. She is talking about her life, her family, her community. And Georgia still hasn't expanded Medicaid. Let that sink in for a second. One of the states that needs it most, that has rural hospitals closing left and right, still hasn't expanded Medicaid. And now the Trump administration and this Congress are pulling out the rug for subsidies that people desperately need. From groceries to housing, people in Georgia's 10th district are in a crisis because costs are going up and wages aren't. and Lexi S. opponent, he S. going to go to Washington and rubber stamp whatever Trump wants, just like Mike Collins did. Here is what really gets me about this. There's this narrative that has been building for years that certain districts are just permanently red, that Democrats shouldn't even try in places like Northeast Georgia, that it's a waste of resources. But I am seeing something different, and I think a lot of people are missing it. Virginia just flipped every single county left in recent elections. Every single county. That's not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. That is a seismic shift in a state that wasn't that long ago considered a red state. And in 2025, Democrats have been winning special elections consistently. There is momentum, there is energy, there is anger at what is happening in Washington. So when someone tells me that Georgia's 10th district can T-flip, I have to ask, based on what? Based on how things used to be? Based on assumptions that might not hold anymore? Because from what I am seeing, the fundamentals have changed. Let me walk you through what I think is really happening here, and you tell me if I am reading this wrong. Trump has made approximately $1.4 billion since he has been in office. We found out this week that one of the Doge guys actually signed a deal with a group to sell our Social Security information to data brokers. The corruption is so blatant, so in your face, that it's becoming impossible to ignore. And I am hearing from people in Georgia, from Lexi S. conversations on the ground, that voters are sick of corrupt politicians who just want to be there for their own pocketbook. This isn't a liberal talking point. This is what conservative voters in rural Georgia are saying. They are tired of being played for fools. They are tired of being told that Trump is fighting for them while he is making billions and his cronies are selling their personal information. Now, the smart counter-argument here, the one I have to address honestly, is this. Georgia's 10th district went for Trump. These voters knew who he was and they voted for him anyway. What makes anyone think they'll change their minds now? And that is a fair point. I've wrestled with that question, but here is what I keep coming back to. There's a difference between voting for Trump for president and voting for a congressman who will be a rubber stamp for whatever Trump wants to do. There's a difference between taking a chance on someone promising change and watching that person systematically dismantle the systems you depend on. Lexi told me something that I think captures this perfectly. She said people want a representative who is going to be focused on the issues that matter in their everyday lives, not trying to take control of Greenland for some unknown reason. And isn't that the fundamental question voters in every district should be asking? What is my representative actually going to do for me? Because Houston Gaines just showed us exactly what he'll do. He'll follow the party line. He'll chase endorsements from Jim Jordan. He'll abandon whatever principles he had if it is politically convenient. Let me tell you what else Lexi is talking about, because this is where I think she's really tapping into something. She wants to raise the minimum wage. Georgia's state minimum wage is still $5.15. The federal overrides that, obviously, but there are thousands of people in the 10th district making less than $15 an hour. Millions more across the country. And her argument is simple. People working a full-time job deserve to make enough money to pay their bills. That should be the baseline. Is that radical? I don't think so. I think that's common sense. But in the current political climate, common sense has become controversial. She is also talking about a federal jobs guarantee. And before you dismiss that as too progressive, listen to her reasoning. All of these businesses are pursuing AI because they want to cut jobs. To them, it's a profit maker. So shouldn't we be thinking about how we make sure people have jobs? If people want to work, shouldn't we be able to put them to work and pay them a living wage for their time? Now, you might disagree with that policy. That is fine. Reasonable people can disagree, but you can just say she is not thinking about the actual problems facing her constituents. Meanwhile, Houston Gaines is thinking about how to get Jim Jordan's endorsement. Here's what scares me about this race, and I mean genuinely scares me. If Democrats can flip a seat in a blue wave year in an open seat race against a candidate who literally wouldn't support Trump 8 years ago and only joined the train when it became politically necessary, then what hope is there? And conversely, if Democrats can flip this seat, if Lexi Dhy can win in Northeast Georgia by talking about kitchen table issues and holding Trump accountable, then the entire map opens up. Because Georgia's 10th is in T, the most liberal district in the South. It is not even close. But Lexi called it one of the most flippable seats in the South. And I think she might be right. Let me talk about the college-town dynamic for a second, because this is important. Athens is home to the University of Georgia. That means you've got young people who are paying student loans. Lexi herself is still paying student loans. These are people who were promised the American dream: get an education, get a good job, work hard, get ahead, and the rug is being pulled out from under them. On top of the cost question, there is the AI question. Industries that have been stable for a long time are now facing disruption because companies see AI as a way to cut jobs and increase profits. These young people are looking at their futures and they re-terrified. Not about what might happen in 20 years, about what's happening right now, about whether they'll be able to afford rent, about whether they'll have jobs, about whether the systems they were told would support them will even exist. And what is Houston Gaines offering them? Loyalty to Trump and endorsements from Jim Jordan. I want to be clear about something because I think this is crucial. I am not saying every Trump voter in Georgia's 10th district is suddenly going to flip Democrat. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. But you don't need every Trump voter to flip. You need enough people to stay home. You need enough people to split their ticket. You need enough independents and moderate Republicans to say, I voted for Trump, but I am not voting for someone who is going to rubber stamp everything he does. And from what I am hearing from Lexi, from what I am seeing in the special election results, from what happened in Virginia, I think that's happening. There is another piece to this that nobody is talking about. Small business owners. Lexi mentioned that Athens has a robust downtown small business community. These are people who are facing higher costs, who are trying to figure out how to make their businesses work, who are worried about losing their health care coverage. And you know what? A lot of small business owners are Republicans. They've voted Republican their whole lives because they believed Republicans were better for business. But what's good for business about chaos? What's good for business about trade wars and tariffs? What's good for business about pulling healthcare subsidies? What's good for business about selling Social Security information to data brokers? I think there's a coalition building here that crosses traditional party lines. Working class people who are tired of not being able to afford groceries. Small business owners who are tired of the chaos and corruption. Young people who are tired of having their futures destroyed. College-educated suburbanites who are tired of the embarrassment. And in an open seat race, that coalition can win. Let me tell you what I think this race is really about, and I could be completely wrong about this. Maybe I am seeing patterns that aren't there. Maybe I am letting hope cloud my judgment. But I think this race is about whether Americans are going to hold politicians accountable for abandoning their principles. Houston Gaines wouldn't support Trump in 2017. He knew Trump was wrong for the country. His political instincts told him that. And then, when it became convenient, when he needed those endorsements and that base support, he abandoned whatever principles he had. That's not leadership. That's careerism. And I think voters are sick of it. Lexi Dhy is running on making people's lives better. Raising the minimum wage, protecting health care, creating jobs, addressing the actual problems people are facing every single day. One of these candidates is focused on the people of Northeast Georgia. The other is focused on getting endorsements from Jim Jordan. And I think the people of Georgia's 10th district are smart enough to see the difference. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking I am being naive. You are thinking that Republican voters in rural Georgia aren't going to vote for a Democrat no matter what. You are thinking this is wishful thinking, and maybe you're right. Maybe I am being naive. But let me ask you this. How many times have we been told that districts can T-flip and then they do? How many times have we been told that certain voters will never change their minds and then they do? How many times have we underestimated what's possible when you give people a real alternative? I am not saying this race is in the bag. I am not saying Lexi Dhy is guaranteed to win, but I am saying she has a real shot, a genuine opportunity to flip a seat that everyone says can be flipped. And here's what I know for certain. If people don't support her campaign, if people don't donate and volunteer and spread the word, then we'll never know what was possible. But if you chip in a few dollars, if you share her website, if you help get her message out, then maybe, just maybe, we flip a congressional seat in Georgia and show the entire country that no district is permanently red. Because a few dollars in a race like this goes a long way. This isn't New York or Chicago where you were competing with millions in corporate money. This is Northeast Georgia where grassroots donations can actually move the needle. Let me paint you a picture of what happens if Lexi wins. First, You've got one more vote in Congress to hold Trump accountable, one more vote to protect health care, one more vote to raise the minimum wage, one more vote to stand up to corruption. But more than that, you send a message. You send a message that political opportunism doesn't work. You send a message that voters are paying attention to who sells out their principles. You send a message that open seats in supposedly red districts are actually competitive. And that changes the entire calculation for the 2026 midterms and beyond. Suddenly, Republicans in other districts have to ask themselves, do I really want to go all in on Trump? Do I really want to rubber stamp everything he does? Or do I need to show some independence to survive? That's how you change the system, not all at once, but district by district, race by race, showing that accountability matters. Now, let me tell you what happens if Houston Gaines wins. He goes to Washington. He votes with Jim Jordan. He rubber stamps whatever Trump wants. He becomes another Mike Collins, another MAGA loyalist who cares more about staying in Trump's good graces than serving his constituents. The corruption continues. The chaos continues. The working class people in Northeast Georgia continue to struggle with rising costs and stagnant wages while Trump makes billions. And the message that gets sent is that political opportunism works, that you can avoid supporting Trump when it's convenient and embrace him when it's convenient, and voters want to care. I don't think that's the message the people of Georgia's 10th district want to send, but we'll see. Here's what I am going to do. I am going to Lexi Dhy's website. I am going to chip in what I can afford. I am going to share her campaign with everyone I know, because I believe this race matters, not just for Georgia's 10th district, but for the whole country. Because if we can flip this seat, if we can show that accountability still matters, if we can prove that candidates who talk about real issues can beat candidates who just chase endorsements, then we change what's possible. And I need you to ask yourself a question. What if this is one of those races that everyone looks back on and says, that where the momentum shifted, that where we proved it could be done? Do you want to be someone who helped make that happen? Or do you want to be someone who watched from the sidelines? Look, I know I'm passionate about this, maybe too passionate. Maybe I'm letting my anger at Houston Gaines' opportunism cloud my judgment. Maybe I'm overestimating Lexi's chances. But here's what I keep coming back to. Every single county in Virginia went left. Democrats are winning special elections. There is a blue wave building, and we have a real candidate with a real message in an open seat race. This is not some fantasy. This is a genuine opportunity. So here's my call to action, and I am going to make it as specific as possible. Go to Lexi Dhy's website. It's just lexidhy.com, and apparently it doesn't matter how you spell her name. You can find her. Chip in whatever you can afford. $10, $25, $50, whatever works for your budget. Share her campaign on social media. Tell your friends, tell your family, especially if you know anyone in Northeast Georgia or anyone who cares about flipping the house. And if you are in Georgia's 10th district, volunteer, knock doors, make phone calls, have conversations with your neighbors about why this race matters. Because a few dollars and a few hours of your time could literally change the balance of power in Congress. That's not hyperbole, that's just math. These races are often decided by a few thousand votes. Your contribution could be the difference. Now, I want to acknowledge something honestly. I could be wrong about all of this. Lexi could lose. Houston Gaines could win easily. The blue wave I am seeing might not materialize. But even if I am wrong, even if this race doesn't go the way I hope, I'd rather fight and lose than not fight at all. I'd rather support a candidate who's talking about real issues than shrug and say it's not worth trying. Because the moment we decide certain districts are unwinnable, the moment we give up on places like Northeast Georgia, that's the moment we've really lost. And I'm not ready to give up. Not on Georgia's 10th district, not on Lexi Dhy, not on the idea that voters will reward candidates who talk about real problems instead of chasing endorsements. So I am asking you, help flip this seat. Help show that political opportunism doesn't pay. Help prove that even in red districts, Democrats can win if they run on the right message with the right candidate. This is one of the most flippable seats in the South. Lexi Dhy is a second-time candidate who knows the district and has built a base of support. We in a blue wave year with an open seat and a Republican opponent who abandoned his principles for political convenience. All the pieces are in place. The only question is whether we are going to do the work. I am going to do my part. I hope you'll do yours, because this race matters. Georgia's 10th district matters. And the message we send by flipping this seat or letting it slip away matters more than you might think. That's my analysis. That is what I am seeing. And that is why I am supporting Lexi Dhy's campaign for Congress. You can disagree with me. You can think I am being too optimistic. That is fine. Reasonable people can see this differently. But I believe in what Lexi is fighting for. I believe voters are smarter than the political class gives them credit for. And I believe that when you give people a real choice between someone who will fight for them and someone who will fight for endorsements, they'll choose the person who will fight for them. We're going to find out soon enough if I am right. But I am not going to sit on the sidelines wondering what could have been. I am going to chip in. I am going to share her campaign. And I am going to do everything I can to help flip Georgia's 10th district. I hope you will join me, because this is our moment. This is our chance. And I don't want to look back and wish we'd have done more when we had the opportunity. Check out lexidhy.com. Chip in if you can, share if you can, and let's flip this seat and show the whole country what's possible when we actually fight for every district. That's it. That is what I wanted to say. Thanks for listening.